stand together with Ukraine against President Putin's war, which threatens the principles at the heart of the international rules-based order, including that all nations should be able to chart their own path and have their sovereignty, their independence, their territorial integrity respected. In the face of these and other challenges, today we discuss ways to deepen our coordination, including on Allied command and control, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, joint and shared usage of facilities, increased bilateral exercises. More than ever before, we're buttressing the U.S.-Japan alliance through deeper cooperation with other allies and partners through both regional and multilateral bodies. In the face of the DPRK's unlawful and reckless missile launches, including the launch of a long-range ballistic missile over Japan in October, we're deepening our trilateral cooperation with the Republic of Korea to deter and, if necessary, defend against aggression. That's a pledge the leaders of our three countries underscored in their November trilateral summit. Today, we held our first formal dialogue in this 2+2 format on extended deterrence, namely to enhance the capability and credibility of our allied defense against a wide range of threats. In June of 2022, Prime Minister Kishida became the first Japanese leader to attend a NATO summit. Japan is spearheading the NATO Asia-Pacific Partners Group, demonstrating the growing synergy between our Atlantic and Pacific alliances. We're working together with our G7 partners to impose coordinated sanctions on Russia for its aggression in Ukraine and to help Ukraine repair, restore, and defend its embattled energy grid. We look forward to Japan's leadership in driving an ambitious agenda on these and other priorities during its presidency of the G7 this year, culminating in the Hiroshima summit. Japan has also stepped up to help our European friends diversify their LNG supply in response to President Putin's weaponization of energy. We're working to advance peace and security through regional bodies like ASEAN, whose centrality is vital to the Indo-Pacific, and through the Quad, including by working with India and Australia to expand what we call maritime domain awareness, basically giving our partners a better ability to detect and respond to challenges in their territorial waters, like illegal fishing, trafficking, climate-related disasters. At the United Nations, we're rallying member states to defend the rights at the core of the United Nations Charter. It's been less than 2 weeks since Japan took its non-permanent seat at the Security Council. Already, we see its leadership on key priorities like peace building, Afghanistan, and the ministerial that the foreign minister will chair tomorrow on the rule of law. And because our national security strategy is so bound up in our economic and energy security, we're strengthening our cooperation in these spheres as well. In May, we joined a dozen other economies that represent 40% of global GDP to launch the Indo-Pacific Economic Framework, which sets out a roadmap to help our economies grow faster and fairer so that all of our people can reach their full potential. Last month, we kicked off the first Japan-U.S. Energy Security Dialogue. Tomorrow, our governments will co-host the 5th Indo-Pacific Business Forum in Tokyo. We're constantly expanding the horizons of our cooperation, beyond even our planet. Later this week, Foreign Minister and I will sign a new agreement on U.S.-Japan cooperation in space. This agreement has been a decade in the making. It covers everything from joint research to working together to land the first woman and person of color on the moon. The bottom line is this: we and our people are always stronger and more secure together. Today, we've taken yet another step toward tightening already incredibly strong bonds. With that, Yogi, the floor is yours.
先ほどブリンケン長官、オースティ長官および浜田大臣と日米2+2を対面で開催をしまして、極めて有意義な意見交換を行うことができました。前回の日米2+2から約1年がこの経過をしましたが、この間にロシアによるウクライナ侵略といった国際秩序の根幹を揺るがす出来事が生じ、国際社会は歴史の岐路に立たされることになりました。安全保障環境が一層厳しさを増す中で、今回の日米2+2は、日米両国の戦略文書発表後のタイミングでの開催となりました。本日の2+2で大きく以下の3点の成果がありました。まず第一に、両国の戦略文書を踏まえながら、地域の戦略環境に関する認識を丁寧にすり合わせるための突っ込んだ議論を行うことができました。具体的にはまず、中国はこれまでにない最大の戦略的挑戦であり、 同国の自らの利益のために国際秩序を作り変えようとする外交政策は、日米同盟及び国際社会全体にとっての深刻な懸念であるという認識を共有をいたしました。その上で、尖閣諸島での日本の長きにわたる姿勢を損なおうとする行為を含めて、東シナ海における中国の力による一方的な現状変更の試みに、日米で引き続き結束して反対することを確認をいたしました。南シナ海における中国の不法な主張や、威嚇的で挑発的な活動への強い反対についても確認をしました。また、両国の台湾に関する基本的立場には変更はないこと、さらに国際社会の安全と繁栄に不可欠な要素である台湾海峡の平和と安定の維持の重要性を確認をしました。同時に中国との間で安全保障面を含む意思疎通を強化していく方針に変更はないことも確認をいたしました。また、ロシアについては、ウクライナ侵略が国際秩序の根幹を揺るがすものである点を改めて確認しつつ、ロシアによる無謀な核のレトリックや民生インフラへの攻撃を非難するとともに、ウクライナに対する強力な支援を継続していくことで一致をいたしました。加えて、中ロの軍事面での協力強化についての懸念を共有をいたしました。さらに北朝鮮については、過去1年間の前例のない数の弾道ミサイル発射を強く非難するとともに、安保理決議に基づく北朝鮮の完全な非核化への揺るぎないコミットメントを再確認し、拉致問題の即時解決を含め、北朝鮮への対応において引き続き緊密に連携することで、米国と完全な意見の一致を見たところでございます。また、日米韓協力の深化の必要性についても一致をいたしました。第2に、一層厳しさを増す安全保障環境における新たな戦略を踏まえ、日米同盟の抑止力、対処力強化に向けた今後の取り組みを確認をいたしました。米国による日本を含むインド太平洋地域における戦力体制を最適化するとの決意を歓迎し、今般発表された在日米軍再編計画の再調整を含めて、日本における米国の戦力体制を一層最適化するための方策につきまして、緊密な協議を継続することを決定をいたしました。また、拡大抑止をアジェンダの一つとし、閣僚レベルで時間を割いて突っ込んだ議論を行いました。その上で、米国の核を含むあらゆる種類の努力に裏打ちされた日本防衛に対する米国の力強いコミットメントを再確認をしました。さらに、日本の新たな国家安保政策が同盟の抑止力を抜本的に強化するものとして、米国から力強い支持の表明がありました。加えて、宇宙・サイバー分野での協力深化、技術協力の推進、情報保全の一層の強化の重要性につき一致をいたしました。また、宇宙における攻撃等への日米安全保障条約第5条の適用可能性を宣言することで一致をできましたことは、同盟全体の抑止力強化の観点で重要な成果でありました。第3に、沖縄をはじめとする地元の負担軽減を図ることの重要性について改めて確認をいたしました。普天間飛行場の継続的な使用を避けるためには、辺野古への移設が唯一の解決策であることを改めて確認をいたしました。また、私からは地元への影響に最大限配慮した安全な運用、早期の通報を含む事件事故での適切な対応、環境問題などについても米側に改めて要請し、緊密に連携していくことを確認をいたしました。今回の日米2+2の結果として発出されました共同発表は、戦略的競争の新たな時代において勝利するための体制を取る現代化された同盟のビジョンを提示するものであります。スピード感を持ってこれを実行に移し、浜田大臣、ブリンケン長官、オースティン長官とともに日米同盟を絶えず強化をしてまいります。私からは以上です。
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to everyone for being here. At the outset, let me thank my friend and colleague, Secretary Blinken, for hosting today's U.S.-Japan 2+2 ministerial meeting. Thanks, Tony. Minister Hamada, Minister Hayashi, I want to underscore my support for the bold decisions that Japan has made in your 2022 National Security Strategy, your National Defense Strategy, and your Defense Buildup Program. There is clear strategic alignment between the visions of President Biden and Prime Minister Kishida. It is a shared commitment to uphold the rules-based international order and to strengthen resilient partnerships around the globe. And the essential U.S.-Japan alliance is at the center of these efforts. Our respective defense strategies provide a strong foundation for our ongoing work to modernize the U.S.-Japan alliance. In addition, Japan's commitments to substantially increase its defense spending and to invest in defense institutions and infrastructure and capabilities will accelerate our alliance's efforts. I'm grateful that we're meeting at such a consequential time as Japan strengthens its own defense and further contributes to regional peace and stability. Today, we welcomed an historic alliance decision to optimize U.S. force posture in Japan by forward stationing more versatile, mobile, and resilient capabilities. These actions will bolster deterrence in the region and allow us to defend Japan and its people more effectively. In an increasingly challenging security environment, we've decided that the 12th Artillery Regiment would remain in Japan and be reorganized into the 12th Marine Littoral Regiment by 2025. We will equip this new formation with advanced intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance, as well as anti-ship and transportation capabilities that are relevant to the current and future threat environments. These posture updates adhere to the basic tenets of the 2012 realignment plan, and they will strengthen our alliance's ability to maintain regional peace and stability. We also discussed updating our alliance's roles and missions so that Japan can more actively contribute to regional security alongside the United States and other like-minded partners. And so in our meeting today, we strongly endorse Japan's decision to acquire a counterstrike capability. And we affirm that close coordination on employing this capability will strengthen the U.S.-Japan alliance. We also discussed a number of key issues, including our shared interest in peace and stability in the East and South China Seas and around Taiwan, and our commitment to the denuclearization of North Korea, and our efforts to increase multilateral cooperation with the Republic of Korea, Australia, and other like-minded partners, and our growing cooperation across all domains, including space and cyber. Now, as you've heard me say before, the People's Republic of China is a pacing challenge for the Department of Defense. Japan and the United States remain united in our concern over China's destabilizing actions. And I want to reaffirm the United States' ironclad commitment to defend Japan with the full range of capabilities, including nuclear, and underscore that Article 5 of the Mutual Security Treaty applies to the Senkaku Islands. And tomorrow, Minister Hamada and I will sign new arrangements that will increase opportunities for the Japanese and the United States defense enterprises to closely cooperate on advanced technologies, as well as increase linkages between our respective industrial bases. In our close consultations today have advanced our alliance's efforts to address common challenges ahead of President Biden and Prime Minister Kishida's meeting at the White House this week. I'll close by reiterating that the U.S.-Japan alliance remains a cornerstone of our Indo-Pacific strategy. and it's critical to upholding a free and open regional order. Our alliance is stronger than ever, building on a foundation of teamwork, trust, and shared values that has underpinned our relationship for decades. And so there is no challenge that we can overcome if we continue to work shoulder to shoulder. Thank you.
はじめに、オースティン長官、ブリンケン長官、そして本会合の開催に尽力された米側関係者の皆様に感謝申し上げる次第であります。我々を取り巻く安全保障環境の厳しさは、すでに3人の閣僚が述べた通りであります。この厳しい競争の時代において、ルールに基づく国際秩序と自由で開かれたインド太平洋を維持していくため、日米同盟が果たさねばならない役割はこれまでになく大きなものになっております。先般策定された両国の国家安全保障及び防衛戦略はこれまでにないレベルで整合したものであり、今後の二国間協力の優れた基盤となります。特に両国があらゆるアプローチと手段を統合させて、事態の正規を抑止することを重視する点で一致していることは重要です。同時に戦略は策定して終わるものではありません。安全保障環境の厳しさを踏まえると、日米両国にはそれぞれの戦略を速やかにかつ着実に実行していくことが求められております。同時に私は新たな戦略のもと、日本の防衛力の抜本的強化を速やかに実現するため、反撃能力を含めた新たな能力の獲得や継戦能力の増強に最大限努力いたします。このような私の決意に対し、本日、オースティン長官、ブリンケン長官から強い支持をいただいたことを大変心強く思います。また、日米間においても連携強化に向けた議論を急がねばなりません。本日の協議では、日本の防衛力の抜本的強化を踏まえた同盟の役割、任務分担を実現していく必要性で一致しました。さらに、日米協力の下での反撃能力の効果的な運用、宇宙・サイバー分野における連携の強化、装備技術面での協力の進化といった幅広い分野における取り組みを進めていくことについても、4閣僚で合意をいたしました。また、同盟のパートナーシップを拡大するため、豪州、韓国、ASEAN、欧州等のパートナー国との協力をさらに深めていくことで一致をいたしました。地域において一層重要性が増している拡大抑止に関しても、オースティン長官よりも米国の考え方を幅広く伺いました。その上で、米国の拡大抑止がより信頼でき、より強靭なものであり続けるために、両国が進めていくべき取り組みについて議論したところであります。日米両国は厳しさを増す安全保障環境に対応するため、日本における米軍の体制を最適化するための取り組みとして、2012年に調整された現行再編計画について、その基本原則は維持した上で、再調整を行うこととしました。第3海兵師団司令部と第12海兵沿岸連隊の沖縄残留は、前方に展開する米軍の戦力体制をより多面的な能力を有し、より強靭性があり、そしてより機動的なものとするためのものであります。この取り組みは、日米同盟の抑止力、対処力を大きく向上させるものであると同時に、我が国の防衛に対する米国の確固たるコミットメントを示すものであります。これらの取り組みについては、その実地に向け、引き続き米側と緊密に協議していく考えです。また、私から在日米軍が安定的な駐留と活動にとって、沖縄をはじめとする地元コミュニティの理解が重要であることを述べました。引き続き沖縄の負担軽減の努力を進めてまいります。本日、日米両国が将来の国家安全保障、防衛政策の道しるべとなる戦略文書を策定した直後のタイミングで、防衛外交政策の責任者である4閣僚が一堂に会し、それぞれの戦略をどのように実行していくか、じっくりと議論できたことは大変意義深いことでありました。今後、同盟の強化に向け、引き続き議論を重ねていく考えです。 ありがとうございました。
Side. We will start with Sean Tandon of the AFP.
Hi there. Good evening. Thanks for this. Can I follow up on a couple of things that you just announced? Speaking about the Marine Littoral Regiment, both the Defense Secretary and Defense Minister spoke of the increasingly challenging security environment. Can you be more specific in what you're responding to? Is it specifically China? Are these contingencies in Taiwan or potentially in the Senkaku Islands, North Korea? And also, you mentioned the impact in Okinawa. Is there any concern that this could aggravate tensions locally in Okinawa? Will this result in a net increase in the forces there? And if you don't mind, could I also ask about space? There have been some reports that space will now be included as part of the defense partnership. Could you comment on that? And on the American side, if you don't mind, a couple of questions that are a little bit off topic. To Secretary Austin, the situation in Ukraine, Solidar. There have been lots of reports. The Wagner Group has claimed to control it, and there's been another shakeup in the Russian military command. What do you make of this? Do you think that it's fallen? What significance do you see? And Secretary Blinken, a couple of days ago, you're just in Latin America yesterday, but a couple of days ago in Brazil, there was, of course, the unrest. Former President Bolsonaro remains in the United States. There have been some calls from the Democratic Party to make a persona non grata. How tenable is it for him to stay in Florida despite what happened a couple of days ago in Brasilia? Thanks very much.
You want to start?
So I lost count on a number of questions, but we'll try to knock them down. If we miss one, then we'll double back. First, let me begin with the question you asked on Solidar and whether or not it's fallen to the Russians. At this point, we can't corroborate that reporting. Of course, I've seen some of that reporting. But you know that this has been a very fluid, dynamic environment, dynamic fight in that area. It's gone back and forth a number of times, and it really is some pretty brutal fighting. But the Ukrainians have acquitted themselves very, very in a very impressive fashion as they continued to fight a very determined fight. We are focused on doing everything we can to help make sure that the Ukrainians have the capabilities that they need to be successful in their efforts to defend their sovereign territory. You know, I talk to my counterpart routinely. We're going to conduct another Ukraine contact group, defense contact group meeting next week in Germany, where we'll get 50 or so ministers of defense together to talk about what Ukraine's needs are now and what they need to be successful going forward. So you've heard us say over and over again that we're going to support Ukraine for as long as it takes, and from everything that I can see from our allies and partners, they feel the same way. So we remain united in our efforts. On the Marine Littoral Regiment, we believe that this capability brings a tremendous capability to the alliance. We're replacing an artillery regiment with an outfit that's more lethal, more agile, more capable. And as you have seen from what's been published on this particular formation, it consists of a combat element, which is a battalion-size element, a long-range fires element, which allows us to gives us an anti-ship capability, which I think is very, very important, and also a logistical element that helps sustain the overall regiment there. So I think this is going to contribute in a major way in our efforts to help defend Japan and also promote a free and open Indo-Pacific. And that's really our focus. Japan, we share a common vision with Japan to maintain a free and open Indo-Pacific, and all the things that we're doing, points towards that direction. So I'm going to stop there and allow Minister Hamada to comment if you'd like.
今のお話に関しましてですが、我々とすれば、沖縄におけるいろいろな今、再編等々たくさんお話があったわけでありますけれども、これに対しては、我々理解をし、そしてまた米軍との調整も含めて、これから議論をしていくところが多分あるわけでございます。いずれにしてもこの沖縄の問題に関しては、大変コミュニティとの関係もあり、我々の説明の努力をこれから重ねることによって、この問題に解決をしていきたいというふうに考えているところであります。
Sean, just to respond, I think, to a couple of other questions you asked. First, in terms of the security environment that we're dealing with, I think it's no secret that it is a more challenging one. And we see different challenges to the status quo coming from different countries, including China, including the DPRK, including, of course, Russia. Even though that aggression against Ukraine is happening in Europe, it has profound implications for countries around the world, including in Asia, because this is not only a challenge to Ukraine and the lives and livelihoods of its people, it's a challenge to the entire international rules-based order and the very principles that underlie that order that are so important in every part of the world: sovereignty, independence, territorial integrity, the right to shape your own future. That's why Japan from day one has been such a strong partner with us and many other countries in seeking to uphold that order, whether it comes to Russia's aggression or in any other areas. You asked about our cooperation in space. Well, there's cooperation in cyberspace and there's cooperation in outer space. We'll be putting out a statement, if it's not already out, that reflects the additional steps that we've taken. But this is very significant. We're working to deepen our cooperation across every realm: land, sea, air, and yes, space, cyber, and outer. The outer space component of this is important to the security and prosperity of our alliance. We agreed, as you've heard, that attacks to, from, or within space present a clear challenge. And we affirmed that, depending on the nature of those attacks, this could lead to the invocation of Article 5 of our Japan-U.S. Security Treaty. That is significant. We'll sign, as I mentioned, a space agreement a little bit later this week at NASA. On cyber, we have emphasized the foundational importance of cybersecurity and information security for our alliance. We agreed there as well to deepen our collaboration. This is a challenge that we both face, other countries face. It's important that we work on it together. We're all learning lessons in dealing with the challenges that come in cyberspace. Being able to share best practices, being able to support one another is more important than ever. We're also committed in that light to bolstering technology cooperation, as well as making joint investments in emerging technologies to try to further sharpen the competitive edge of the alliance. Last question, as I heard it, with regard to Brazil. As President Biden told President Lula, we stand with the people of Brazil, we stand with Brazil's democracy and its institutions. The President will have an opportunity to confer directly and closely with President Lula when he visits Washington in early February, and the President looks very much forward to that. President Lula has called for an investigation of the events of January 8th. I'm not going to get ahead of that. We've not received any specific requests from Brazilian authorities. Of course, if and when we do, we'll work expeditiously to respond, as we always do. And then with regard to individuals, we're talking now about people who are private citizens. We've heard various public statements that have been made by those individuals about their plans, but we really don't have anything to add, and it's not appropriate for us to comment on any individual's visa status.
続いて日本側の、質問をお受けします。日経新聞の三木さん。
日本経済新聞の三木と申します。ありがとうございます。日米の外務・防衛両閣僚にお伺いします。 東アジアでも力による一方的な現状変更が懸念されています。台湾有事のリスクも指摘されている中で、今回の2+2では日本の特に南西方面、これまでもお話ありましたけれども、南西方面の防衛強化に向けて日米でどう取り組み抑止力を高めると一致されましたでしょうか。これから台湾有事を見据えた自衛隊と米軍の一体運用をどのように進めていく予定でしょうか。また、日米両国は昨年改定した国家安保戦略の中で、中国の現状認識をともに国際秩序などへの挑戦と位置づけました。東アジアでの中国の安全保障上のリスクをどう捉えて、どう対応していくのか、お考えをお聞かせください。
まず南西諸島ですが、我が国周辺の安全保障環境が格段と厳しさを増す中で、南西諸島を含む我が国防衛の強化を図るためにですね、日米同盟の抑止力及び対処力の強化、これは急務でありまして、今般の日米2+2において、日本に対する武力攻撃及び地域における安定を損なう行動を抑止するためのですね、平時における共同の取り組みの決定的な重要性について一致をしたところでございます。こうした日米双方の一致した認識を踏まえて、今般発出した共同声明にも具体的な取り組みを記載したわけですが、例えば南西諸島を含む地域において、日米の施設の共同使用、これを拡大してですね、共同演習、訓練を増加させるといったようなこと、これもその取り組みに含まれます。また台湾に関してですが、台湾有事という仮定の質問にお答えすることは差し控えたいと思いますが、政府としては台湾海峡の平和と安定、これは我が国の安全保障はもとより、国際社会全体の安定にとっても重要であり、台湾をめぐる問題がこの対話により平和的に解決されることを期待するというのが従来からの一貫した立場でございます。また中国についてですが、新たな国家安全保障戦略にも明記をいたしましたとおり、現在の中国の対外的な姿勢、また軍事動向等はですね、我が国と国際社会の深刻な懸念事項であり、我が国の平和と安全及び国際社会の平和と安定を確保して、法の支配に基づく国際秩序を強化する上で、これまでにない最大の戦略的な挑戦であると認識をしております。同時に日中両国は地域と国際社会の平和と繁栄にとってともに重要なですね、責任を有しておりまして、日中両国が建設的かつ安定的な関係を構築していくことが、インド太平洋地域を含む国際社会の平和と安定にとっても不可欠であると考えております。
防衛大臣。はい、今、林大臣から説明のあった通りであります。我々、この日米のこの双方の一致した認識を踏まえてですね、南西諸島を含む地域において、日米の視察の共同使用を拡大し、共同演習、訓練を増加させることをコミットいたしました。こういった形で、我々、この日米同盟の抑止力、対処力を一層強化する必要があり、本日の議論も踏まえ、引き続き米国と緊密に連携しながら、日米同盟のさらなる強化のための取り組みを進めてまいりたいと考えております。以上です。
I have little to add because my colleagues have covered it so well. Suffice to say that, first, we are united in ways that, at least in my experience over the last 30 years, we've never been before. There's greater convergence in our approach, greater alignment in our approach, both in terms of the way we see the challenges and how we propose to respond to them than ever before. And I think that's very significant, and you've heard both ministers speak to it. The statements that we're putting out, or we've already put out this afternoon, will reflect in detail that alignment, that convergence between Japan and the United States. When it comes to Taiwan, I think it's very important to note that what we've seen from China in recent years, not recent months, recent years, is unfortunately an effort to undermine the long-standing status quo, a status quo that's maintained peace and stability for decades. We, on the other hand, want to sustain that status quo. We want to bolster it. We oppose any unilateral change to the status quo by either side. We'll continue for a calm, resolute approach to uphold peace and stability. Japan and the United States are united in that effort. As you've heard us say, our alliance is a cornerstone of peace, security, and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific, and the steps that we announced today will strengthen the alliance's ability to uphold the rules-based order that we are both very much committed to.
I think my colleagues have done a tremendous job of outlining the key points here, and so I won't plow that ground again. But I would just say that we really do remain committed to enhancing resiliency and interoperability between U.S. and Japanese forces and deepening the operational cooperation. So the things that we touched upon today, especially the agreement to increase bilateral exercises and training, I think are a real powerful statement of that commitment. So I look forward to continuing to work with my colleagues on these issues going forward.
Our next question goes to Ryo Kiyomaya from Asahi Shimbun.
Thank you so much. I'm Ryo Kiyomiya from Asahi Shimbun, Washington, D.C. Bureau. I have questions for each of you. First, Secretary Austin, while U.S. and Japan share the concern about China's military aggression, how can the U.S. manage the relationship with China and avoid miscalculation leading to the contingencies? And last October, you said that you don't see an imminent invasion of Taiwan by China. Do you still hold that view? And also, if I may, Japan decided to establish a self-defense force joint headquarters. From your perspective, what would be the ideal alliance command and control relationship between US and Japan to enhance the interoperability and readiness? And Secretary Blinken, regarding US-China relations, how do you plan to manage and build the relationship with China during your upcoming engagement with China? And also, what kind of role do you expect Japan to play in diplomacy to manage this relationship? Finally, to Minister Hamada and Minister Hayashi, there is a growing sense of risk about China's invasion of Taiwan. In the previous 2+2 meeting, US and Japan welcomed the robust progress on bilateral planning for contingencies. How would you evaluate the current progress on bilateral planning for contingencies so far with the US? Also, from the perspective of deterring China's aggression, how do you evaluate the recent US announcement of reorganization of Marines in Okinawa into the Marine Littoral Regiment? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think your first question was, how do we avoid miscalculation? You've heard me say a number of times that it's absolutely critical that leaders of great powers maintain open lines of communication and be able to talk with each other. And that way we can avoid miscalculation wherever possible. And you see us continuing to try to ensure that we keep those lines open. And I would invite my colleagues in China to meet us halfway there and work hard to keep those lines of communication open. And that is the primary and best way to avoid that miscalculation. Of course, you know, I believe that our forces are trained and disciplined to the degree that, you know, they're going to do everything within their power to avoid any kind of misunderstanding or miscalculation. But again, that dialogue is enormously important. So, and then your second question was regarding whether or not whether or not an invasion of Taiwan by China is imminent. You know, I won't second guess Mr. Xi, but what I will tell you, what we're seeing recently is some very provocative behavior on the part of China's forces in their attempt to reestablish a new normal. So we've seen increased activity, aerial activity in the Straits. We've seen increased surface vessel activity around Taiwan. And again, we believe that they endeavor to establish a new normal, but whether or not that means that an invasion is imminent, I seriously doubt that. So we will continue to watch and we will continue to work with our allies and partners to do everything that we can to ensure that we promote peace and stability in the Strait and in the region overall.
And just quickly more broadly to add to that on China, as you know, President Biden, President Xi had a very open, candid conversation during the last G20 meeting in Bali, and they spoke about our intentions. President Biden shared our intentions and our priorities, and we got some sense of that from President Xi as well. As the Secretary of Defense just said, these lines of communication, starting with the presidents, but also including many of us, are vitally important to keep open, and I would hope to deepen, because as the Secretary of Defense said, what we don't want is for any misunderstanding to veer into conflict. I will have an opportunity to travel to China in the coming weeks to follow up on the President's discussions, precisely to move forward on those lines of communication between us. Both of our countries, Japan and the United States, have complex and consequential relationships with China. And there are clearly aspects of intense competition between us. There are aspects as well of cooperation. And it's important to see if we can pursue those. We hear from countries around the world the desire for the United States, China, Japan to manage this relationship responsibly, and if there are areas where we can cooperate that would be to the benefit not only of our own people, but of people around the world, whether it's in climate, whether it's in global health, whether it's in dealing with drugs, we should pursue them. But we are going to compete vigorously. The President's been very clear about that. We're not looking for conflict. We'll manage the competition responsibly, but we will compete vigorously. And we will seek to keep these lines of communication open and do all that we can to establish guardrails to prevent competition, as I said, from veering into conflict.
まずは米国による日本を含むインド太平洋地域におけるですね、戦略体制を最適化するという決意を歓迎して、今般発表されました在日米軍再編計画の再調整を含めてですね、日本における米国の戦力体制を一層最適化するための方策について緊密な協議を継続することを決定をしたところでございます。また必ずしもご質問の趣旨を正確に捉えているかどうか分かりませんが、もしご質問がガイドラインについてということであれば、この日米ガイドラインに関する議論は今日はございませんでした。日米ガイドラインの見直しの必要性について不断に検討はしていきますけれども、いずれにしても直ちに日米ガイドラインの見直しが必要となるということを考えてはいないということでございます。
私の方からは共同計画についてはですね、2015年に作成された日米防衛協力のための指針のもと、日米両政府は共同計画を策定・更新することとしており、今回も緊急事態に関する共同計画作業の着実な進展を歓迎をいたしました。また、現下の厳しい安全保障環境に対応し、在日米軍の体制強化するため、再編終了後の在沖海兵隊の規模は維持した上で、第3海兵師団司令部のおよび第12海兵連隊を沖縄に残列させること、また同連隊を2025年までに海兵沿岸連隊に改編させることで一致をいたしました。このような取り組みは在日米軍の体制を強化するものであると同時に、日本の防衛に対する米国の揺るぎないコミットメントを改めて示すものであり、我が国自身の防衛力の抜本的強化と相まって、日本に対する武力攻撃や地域における安定を損なう行動に対する抑止力、対処力を大きく向上させるものだと考えております。以上です。
では最後のご質問になります。朝日新聞の田島さん。
朝日新聞の田島と申します。よろしくお願いします。今回の会談では、日本政府が新たに策定した国家安全保障戦略や国家防衛戦略が主要な議題になったと思います。ここでまず林大臣と浜田大臣にお伺いします。反撃能力を含めた防衛力の抜本的な強化や、その裏付けとなる防衛費の大幅な増加の意義や狙いについて、アメリカ側にどのような説明をされましたでしょうか。教えてください。次にアメリカのブリンケン国務長官とオースティン国防長官にお伺いします。日本の防衛力強化の取り組みをどう評価されるでしょうか。また、日米両国の新たな戦略が出揃ったことで、今後、日米の抑止力、対処力を具体的にどのように高めていくつもりでしょうか。また、先ほど林大臣の方からガイドラインの話がありましたが、日米ガイドラインの改定の必要性について、どうお考えでしょうか。よろしくお願いします。
それではまず私からお答えをいたします。本日の2+2では、一層厳しさを増す安全保障環境における新たな戦略を踏まえて、日米同盟の抑止力、対処力強化に向けた今後の取り組みを確認をいたしました。私からは、我が国の防衛力の抜本的強化は、米国の能力のより効果的な発揮にもつながるということ、そしてそれは日米同盟の抑止力、対処力を一層強化するものとなり、地域の平和と安定のために大きな役割を果たすことになる旨を発言をさせていただきました。これに対し、アメリカ側からは力強い支持の表明をいただいたところでございます。先ほどもお伝えをしたとおり、今回の日米2+2の結果として発出される共同声明、これは戦略的競争の新たな時代における同盟のビジョンを提示するものであります。スピード感を持ってこれを実行に移し、浜田大臣、ブリンケン長官、オースティン長官とともに、日米同盟を絶えず強化してまいりたいと考えております。
私の方からは、日本の防衛力の抜本的強化を速やかに実現するために、大幅に増額した防衛予算の下で、反撃能力を含めた新たな能力の獲得や継戦能力の増強に最大限努力する強い決意を申し上げたところであります。今、林大臣からもお話がありましたように、米側からは日本の新たな安全保障政策を同盟の抑止力を強化する重要な進化であるとして、強い支持が表明をされました。本日の議論を踏まえ、戦後最も厳しく複雑な安全保障環境の中で、反撃能力を含めた我が国の防衛力の抜本的強化と相まって、日米同盟が地域及び国際社会の平和、安定、繁栄のためにさらに確保としたものとなるよう、引き続きオースティン長官、ブリンケン長官及び林大臣とともに取り組んでまいる所存であります。以上です。
Thank you for the question. It's very simple. We heartily welcome the new strategies, especially because there is, as I said, and we've all said, remarkable convergence between our strategies and Japan's. We applaud the commitment to increased investment, to enhanced roles, missions, and capabilities that you've heard, to closer cooperation, not only between the United States and Japan, but as well with other allies and other partners on a bilateral basis, but also on a trilateral and multilateral basis. We already have a strong foundation. That's only going to grow. As we read them, these new documents really reshape the alliance's ability to promote peace and protect the rules-based order in the region, but also beyond, around the world. I think what you're seeing in real time is an alliance that is modernizing, and the United States and Japan are working in lockstep to be prepared for the emerging challenges in the Indo-Pacific and beyond. So we could not be more pleased with the work that we're doing together, but also, and I have to say, for Japan's extraordinary leadership. I know President Biden will have an opportunity to share that appreciation with Prime Minister Kishida when he welcomes him here to Washington later this week.
I certainly agree with Secretary Blinken. There is clear strategic alignment between the visions of President Biden and Prime Minister Kishida. You see that reflected in the strategies as you put them side by side. We are all focused on maintaining a rules-based international order and promoting peace and stability in the region. So what you've heard us talk about today, the things that we discussed in the meeting, really bring that strategy to life. Optimizing force posture, agreeing to increase our bilateral exercises and training events, all of those things are real good indicators that all of us are committed to making sure that, as Prime Minister Hamada has said previously, we don't just write strategies. You know, we do the things necessary to be able to execute them. And this is work that's never finished. Okay, so we will continue to work to optimize force posture and increase interoperability so that we maintain a credible deterrent force. And I look forward to continuing to work with my colleagues to do that, what I would call hard government work. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you, everyone. That concludes the press conference.